Today, we're diving deep into a hidden corner of Middle-earth that I think deserves way more attention. You've heard of the Elves of Rivendell, Lothlorien, and even the Sylvan elves like Legolas. But how much do we actually know about the mysterious Avari elves? Yes, I'm talking about the Avari, elves who chose to turn their backs on Valinor and refused the call of the Valar. These elves are shrouded in mystery, almost like ghosts in the history of Middle-earth. And trust me, what little we do know about them is absolutely fascinating. So grab your lembas, get comfy, and let's go on this journey together. Let's start with a quick refresher on Elven origins. In Tolkien's world, the elves are known as the Quendi, which basically means those who speak. They were the first beings to awaken in Middle-earth, the firstborn of Eru Ilúvatar, the supreme being who created everything in Tolkien's universe, including Middle-earth and the two races we know best, elves and men, called the Children of Ilúvatar. So here's where things get interesting. Valar, these godlike guardians of Middle-earth, discovered the elves chilling by the shores of Cuiviénen. Now, if you're wondering where Cuiviénen is on your Middle-earth map, don't bother. It's so ancient and lost that it only exists in Tolkien's myths. It's like the Atlantis of Middle-earth. The Valar invited the elves to come live with them in Valinor, which is essentially paradise. Most of the elves thought, well, why not? Sounds amazing. But not all of them. A small group of elves decided they weren't interested in moving west and leaving their home behind. These elves became known as the Avari. In Quenya, the Elvish language, Avari literally means the unwilling. But why? Why did they stay behind? Fear of the journey. Disinterest in the promises of Valinor? Or was it distrust in the Valar themselves? Tolkien hints at all of these as possible reasons. And that decision, that choice not to go, set them on a very different path. A path that makes them incredibly unique among elves. Now, let's talk about what makes the Avari so mysterious. Unlike the Eldar, the Avari didn't experience the enlightenment, knowledge, or even the magical abilities their kin gained in Valinor. They didn't get to see the two trees of Valinor. They didn't gain the wisdom from the Valar. And this lack of higher education left them different. Their kin, the Avari, came to be seen as rustic, maybe even uncivilized. Can you imagine? In Middle-earth, elves are pretty much seen as the ultimate beings, wise, graceful, nearly immortal. But even among the elves, the Avari were kind of looked down upon. Tolkien didn't write a lot about the Avari. In fact, we hardly know anything about their lives, their customs, or even where exactly they all lived. It's as if they were just forgotten. While the Eldar were building great kingdoms, like Gondolin and Lothlorien, the Avari were blending into the woods and mountains of Middle-earth. And over time, they developed their own dialects, their own way of life, completely separate from the civilized Eldar. That's what makes them so interesting, because, think about it, their choice to stay behind probably led them to live more rugged, more survivalist lifestyles. While we don't get detailed stories about them, just imagine what their lives must have been like in a world growing increasingly dark and dangerous. Now, let's get to the dark side. While the Eldar enjoyed the eternal light of Valinor, the Avari were left in Middle-earth, where evil was spreading fast. And this is where things get really tragic. Morgoth, who's basically the original Dark Lord, was wreaking havoc all over Middle-earth. If you think Sauron is bad, Morgoth was way worse. The Avari, by staying in Middle-earth, were left to face Morgoth's minions all on their own, without the protection of the Valar. Here's where things get disturbing. According to some of Tolkien's earlier ideas, Morgoth captured and tortured some of the Avari. And yes, these tortured Avari may have been the twisted origin of orcs. That's right. Orcs. The same grotesque, violent creatures we see in The Lord of the Rings. Mind-blowing, right? In The Two Towers, Treebeard mentions that orcs are counterfeits, in mockery of the elves. It's implied that Morgoth took these innocent, noble creatures and broke them until they became monstrous soldiers for his dark army. Imagine the horror of that, what they must have gone through. But wait, before we go too deep into the despair, let's think about what the Avari's existence adds to Tolkien's world. They represent this really important concept of free will. Tolkien was all about choice and the consequences that come with it. The Avari remind us that even in a world of destiny and prophecies, people, or elves, still get to choose their paths. The Avari might seem like this obscure footnote, but they give Middle-earth this whole other layer. Not every elf chose paradise. Some chose to stay, to explore, to risk their lives and stay grounded in Middle-earth. It's almost like they're rebels, living a life that's authentic to them, even though it comes with unimaginable risks. And in some ways, maybe they're more relatable to us than the High Elves. The Avari's lives weren't perfect, but they were real. They lived in a world full of struggle, they made mistakes, and they paid for them. So, Next time you think of the elves as these perfect magical beings who are somehow above it all, remember the Avari. A proof that even in a world as grand as Middle-earth, there's room for characters who are imperfect, who struggle, and who still choose to live life on their own terms. So what's the takeaway here? The Avari, although rarely mentioned, add this incredible depth to Tolkien's mythology. They show us that not all elves followed the same path, that not all of them were bound to the light and wisdom of Valinor. They show us a different side of Middle-earth's history, a side that's filled with mystery, tragedy, and a bit of rebellion. Imagine if one day we got a story from the perspective of an Avari elf. Wouldn't that be wild? We'd get a whole new look at Middle-earth from the eyes of someone who lived through its darkest times and survived in ways we can only guess at. Maybe that's why Tolkien left their stories untold, so we could fill in the gaps with our own imaginations. So, what do you think? Should the Avari get more attention in Tolkien's world? Or maybe even in a new show or book? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this dive into Middle-earth's mysteries, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next deep dive. Until then, my friends, stay curious, stay adventurous, and keep exploring the worlds of fantasy and wonder. Catch you in the next one.